The shooting had stopped. The dying had not. On the afternoon of December 13th, 1862, the Confederate Army had repelled a Union assault on Marye's Heights outside Fredericksburg, Virginia, with such efficiency that the ground in front of the stone wall had become something close to a slaughterhouse. Wave after wave of Union soldiers had advanced across open ground toward the Confederate position, and wave after wave had been cut down. By the end of the day, the Union Army had suffered more than 12,000 casualties. Thousands of wounded men lay in the frozen field in front of the wall, some dying slowly, all of them in pain, many of them calling out for water in the dark. The night was cold, the ground was frozen, and through the night and into the next morning, the sounds from the field continued. The voices of men who were hurt beyond helping themselves, who had no water, who lay where they had fallen and called out into the dark and received nothing in return. Nobody crossed the line. Crossing the line meant being shot. Both sides understood this. The field between the armies was a killing ground, and a man who entered it, even to help the wounded, risked being killed by nervous soldiers on either side, who could not distinguish mercy from attack. Richard Kirkland was a 19-year-old sergeant in the 2nd South Carolina Infantry. He had fought the day before, he had done his job, and he had spent the night listening to the sounds from the field and found, by morning, that he could no longer simply listen. He went to his commanding general, Joseph Kershaw, and asked for permission to go out to the wounded men with water. Kershaw told him what was true. It was a suicide mission. The Union soldiers would not understand what he was doing. His own men might not hold their fire. There was no flag of truce, no protocol, no protection for what he was proposing. Kirkland asked if he could carry a white flag. Kershaw said no. That would constitute a formal truce that he did not have the authority to arrange. Kirkland said he would go anyway. He gathered as many canteens as he could carry. Accounts vary between 12 and 18. And climbed over the stone wall. What happened next has been described by officers on both sides who witnessed it from their respective positions. The Union soldiers on the field, those who could see and move, saw a Confederate soldier coming toward them. The instinct was to shoot. Several raised their rifles. Nobody fired. Something in the way he moved, or the canteens he carried, or the singular unhurried calm of a 19-year-old boy walking across a killing field with water for his enemies, communicated itself across the frozen ground and the 200 yards of silence. The rifles came down. The men on both sides watched. Kirkland moved through the field for an hour and a half. He gave water to every man he could reach. He adjusted the positions of men who were lying in pain. He covered some of them with his coat. He spoke to them. In what words, the historical record does not capture exactly. But witnesses described him moving among the Union wounded as if they were not enemies at all, as if the categories of Confederate and Union had been temporarily suspended by the more fundamental category of men who were suffering and men who could help. When a cheer went up from the Union lines, the enemy soldiers honoring an enemy soldier for what he was doing, the Confederate soldiers on the wall behind him added their voices to it. For a specific, documented, unrepeatable hour and a half, the Battle of Fredericksburg paused for one man with canteens. Kirkland was not shot. He returned to his lines when the canteens were empty. He was 19 years old. He had no authority to arrange a truce, no official sanction for what he had done, and no certainty that he would survive the crossing in either direction. He had gone because the sounds from the field had become something he could not continue to hear without doing something about them. He was killed 9 months later, on September 20th, 1863, at the Battle of Chickamauga. He was 20 years old. He had been a soldier for 2 years. He's buried in Quaker Cemetery in Camden, South Carolina. His act at Fredericksburg was reported at the time and gradually became one of the most frequently cited examples of individual mercy in the Civil War, A conflict not short of atrocities, but not without its moments of recognition between the men on opposing sides that they were, underneath the causes and the uniforms and the orders, the same kind of creature. A statue of Kirkland, climbing the wall with his canteens, was erected at the Fredericksburg battlefield in 1965. He is called the Angel of Marye's Heights, a name that captures something about what he did, but perhaps not the thing that matters most. What matters most is not the angel. What matters most is the 19-year-old who had a normal soldier's instinct for self-preservation and overrode it because he could not stand the sound of dying men asking for water that no one was bringing them. He went over the wall, the guns went quiet. He gave water to his enemies in the cold. That is the entire story. It doesn't require improvement.